Hi, I'm Paul from Apex Mindset. This is an intro to a two-part video here I'm going to do as a follow-up from the video titled The Price of Promiscuity, Woman Regrets Her Past. I think that's what I ended up having the title end up being. Anyway, that brought a lot of new people to the channel who've never heard my content before, and this information is new to some of you who just subscribed, who are just here. I got a lot of comments in, I think I'm pushing 50,000 views now on this video, which is a lot for me. And a lot of people were pretty outraged in the commentary because the things that I'm talking about with promiscuity, it's like, it's new information and it might mess with your worldview. So I want to start out, though, with a couple caveats. First of all, I'm not against banging. I'm not against sex. Part of what I do is helping people have better sex in consultation sessions, men and women, having more sex and having better quality. Okay, so I'm not coming from a position of don't have sex or having sex is bad, right? But I have to be honest with you about the consequences of certain behaviors. And behaviors do have consequences. So that is where this is coming from. And I'm going to give advice in part one of this video for women as to what you can do about the effects of promiscuity. It's not, I don't expect you to join a religious cult and not have sex until you marry or any of that kind of stuff. That's not the idea of what you should do. So I'm going to give advice in part one of this video. Guys, it's good for you to listen to this though, because women who do the things that I'm going to list are potentially good partners for long-term relationships. So that's where that can help you guys to hear it. Most of my listeners are men. I have a few women. I have a few outraged women now from that video I just did. I don't really care about the outrage. I'm not trying to alienate anybody either. I want you to understand that this is coming from a vast body of research on neurochemicals, pair bonding, evolutionary psychology. So the truth is what it is. It's just a question of what to do about it. I didn't really mention this in the body of this first part of this video series, is that I'm not here to shame women either. Now, some of the guys in the comments are a little bit more savage than I am, and I can't control that. I'm not here to shame or crap all over women who've lived a promiscuous lifestyle, which, if you were born after 1990, that's probably most of you, okay? I'm not sitting here trying to say it's hopeless for you. I'm not sitting here trying to shame you. I'm just making you aware of these consequences. Now, there's a lot of research that still needs to be done because we know there's negative consequences to pair bonding, but we don't know to what extent. At what point is it going to be hopeless for one girl versus another girl? Is there that point? Does that point ever happen? Is there a way to recover from it? These are all things we're figuring out. But you don't want to play Russian roulette with your long-term happiness by going through a promiscuity phase when you're in college, right? That's not necessarily the best idea. That being said, if you've already done that, I don't want you to take this information and think that I'm saying you're trash and I'm saying you can't have happiness later on. What I am saying, though, is it's not going to happen by accident, and it's not going to happen by pointing and sputtering and getting mad over true information. If you want long-term happiness, there are things you're going to have to do in order to achieve that, and now you have uphill battles because of your past behavior and the consequences of that behavior on your neurochemical systems. Again, it doesn't mean it's hopeless, but don't sit back and think that you're going to reject this information and point and sputter and yell, and then you're just going to turn around and have what you want if you want long-term happiness later on. That's not how this works. And so this goes back to capability. Women who are capable are going to see this stuff for what it is and start making better decisions for themselves and starting to figure this stuff out. And the women who are not capable will point and sputter, and they will not do that. So I guess the choice is yours. But my point is, you want to know what to do, though, because I didn't really cover this part in the body of the video. You want to know what to do if you've already gone through your promiscuous phase, if you have quite a few notches and quite a few experiences under your belt. The answer is to follow this first part of this video and start doing the things I'm saying now. If you haven't been doing that already, these things already, it's never too late to start. And I guess that's the point. Your first step is to start changing your behavior. You've been feeding what a genetic polyamorous drive for some time now. If that's what you've been doing, you have to stop feeding that drive and start feeding a drive towards pair bonding. That's the first step to recovering some of this and opening up the potential for maybe long-term success. And don't be mad if guys aren't going to want to put up with it. A guy does not have to put up with your past experiences and mistakes. A guy doesn't have to take on your problems. And guys listening, you don't have to take on a girl's problems. So if a guy sits there in the comments and says, well, I would never date a girl like this, or I never do that. Hey man, that's that guy's choice. And he is not obligated to accept you for your mistakes. Nobody is. Just like nobody's obligated to accept me or anybody else for my mistakes. Okay, so those are personal choices. But that being said, there's plenty of people who would accept that, provided that you show up today. We'll say how you show up in the present is more important than how you were showing up in your past. Who you are now, guy or girl, is always going to be more important than who you were when you were making certain sexual decisions. If you were a bad person and you cheated or you did this, that, and the other, man or woman, right? If that's who you were and not who you are now, not just because you say, well, I wouldn't do that again, but because you've taken real inventory and you've on yourself, and you've got more emotional maturity. You've done the work to try to understand your behavior and to change your desire to do that past behavior. That makes you different now. You show up in relationship now in the present. That's what's the most important. So that's the thing we got to remember. We want to always focus on that, not so much beat each other up or beat ourselves up over things we've done. So that being said, we'll get on to the first part of the video, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that some of you guys can apply this stuff to your life. Again, I want you guys to bang. I want you guys to have great sex. But going through a promiscuity phase for a woman isn't necessarily a bunch of great sex, usually. Okay, so I want you to have sex in the context of what is going to help you for getting what you want in life in general. Thanks again. So what are we going to do about promiscuity? I'm Paul from Apex Mindset. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, get on my email list, like the video at the end. So people seem to like this topic. It is a bit controversial, however. The most controversy comes from guys and girls wanting to believe that men and women are the same. Men and women are not the same biologically. Your need or desire for fairness and for equality is not going to change how biology is. It's just how things are. I'm not going to get too far in the weeds of this because I want to get into the topic of what are we going to do about it. But just understand that men and women evolved with different mating strategies. And we can't undo that evolution with a few decades of the internet or a few decades of social engineering or feminism or traditional conservatism, or pick any worldview. You're not going to undo your nature in a few decades when your DNA has been coded from thousands of years of an evolved mating strategy. With that mating strategies, women had to be more selective because they got pregnant and then effectively were having to take care of and be saddled with a baby. So women were more selective, looking to select for the best genetic matches and best genetic options for mating. Because of that selection, women who bonded a certain way with a certain neurochemical concoction involving oxytocin survived and had babies that survived and were a product of that. Men were conditioned to spread seed amongst as many women as possible, a bit more indiscriminately, because men can't get pregnant. The male pair bonding mechanism, which involves a little bit of a different concoction of vasopressin and oxytocin and not primarily oxytocin, from what I understand, and again, there's a lot more to that I'm not going to cover here, but it has something to do with the male neurochemical concoction. A man can pair bond or have a bonding with a woman and his offspring when he's had several other notches, and it doesn't affect him in the same way. It doesn't affect him in the same negative way. Reason is because the male strategy, again, was spreading seed, whereas the woman was being more selective. So in a nutshell, without too much of a in-the-weeds explanation, that is why men and women are different. So women cannot execute her promiscuity phase or garden tool, we'll call it phase, in her younger years and then expect to settle into a long-term relationship and be happy later. She compromises that ability. Now, how much so? Well, that depends on the woman, her genetic makeup, depends on the experiences, not just the number of experiences, but the nature of those experiences and how impacting they were. There's a lot of variables here, but what we do know is that indiscriminate sex for women does destroy their ability for long-term relationships and being happy in those relationships later. Understand your happiness and enjoyment comes from neurochemical rewards. And if you're practicing polyamorous strategies as a woman, you're getting neurochemical rewards for that. When you try to convert now to long-term pair bonding, it doesn't necessarily convert so well. You've been practicing promiscuity and the neurochemical rewards from the newness of a partner versus getting neurochemical rewards from staying with a single partner and going deeper with that partner, we'll say, and having deeper experiences. And so for many women, it's just a blunted neurochemical reaction. And so without feeling good about it and without having those feelings that you should have when you're having a bonded relationship, or maybe having those feelings during the honeymoon phase, but then having that erode very quickly for a need of variety with other partners, and that can show up as boredom with your current partner and a lot of other things. This hinders your ability to have that long-term person that you want to be in love with for decades to come. That is just the way that it is. And so people don't like that uncomfortable truth, but if you don't face that uncomfortable truth and ask yourself, well, okay, what can I do about this? Whether or not you have already executed promiscuous strategy and now you're left with the aftermath as a woman, or whether you haven't yet, you have to ask yourself, what can I do? And as men, you have to ask yourself, well, what can I do about this when maybe my small little channel got 30,000 views, but the reality is most of Western civilization is in a global sexual marketplace where women are far more promiscuous than they ever were before in history, from what we can tell. So what's a man supposed to do about that? That's the biggest thing. So first of all, understand though that this mating strategy, this evolved strategy, is complementary. So men wanting to spread seed, but then women being the selectors, canceled things out a little bit and tempered male and female behavior. If women are selecting properly and not trying to execute a male strategy, then they are tempering that man's desire to just sleep with everything, if that makes any sense. They sort of cancel each other out and it becomes a complement to each other. It's sort of a check and balance, if you will. But if that polarity comes off, gets a little bit off and women are trying to sleep around like men are trying to sleep around, well, now there's no more check and balance. So promiscuity rises, as well as the negative consequences of promiscuity also rise. So that is a situation we're in the global sexual marketplace. Now, I'm not against sex. Understand, I love sex, okay? I help people have better sex. Part of my coaching for both men and women has been to help them with their sex lives, not just dating and hookup and relationships and getting over breakups and all that other stuff I do, but actually helping people improve their sex lives in the bedroom. That is something I've counseled and coached people on. So I am all about sex, but I have to tell you the cold hard truth about things like promiscuity so that you understand what the truth is, and so you can deal with that information. What are you going to do about it? How do you fulfill your primal drives and needs for sex and wants for sex, which is a primal desire and drive in the global sexual marketplace, so that you can have productive and happy relationships or productive and happy encounters? How do you do that with your drives the way that they are? That's what I want you to understand. You can't come up with a strategy that's going to help you for success, both short-term and long-term, if you're not willing to accept the truth of how things are. But we need to start with that. Men and women are different. I got a lot of new subscribers now from that video, and a lot of people that don't have the background from my previous videos. So go back and binge watch stuff. I talk about these topics in quite a few videos, and that'll clear a lot of different things up, okay? But the point is, understand that we have different strategies, and you just have to be willing to accept that. So I'm going to start with, what should a woman do? Because women love it when guys tell them what they should do. I'm, of course, joking. But this will be good, even though most of my listeners and subscribers are men. Well, guys are always asking, well, what things should I look for good signs that she might be capable of pair bonding? So this is going to help you. If she is doing these things already, the things I'm about to mention, these are good signs. For example, if she's never cheated before, good sign, right? That's obviously a real easy one. So I'm going to go through a little list, and for you guys, that's going to help you, because if she's capable of pair bonding, or at least if she's not living her life in a way that compromises pair bonding, she's going to already be doing some of the things I'm going to mention. Now, for you women that might be listening, the fewer of you that do watch my stuff, and some of you new ladies who came to my channel and who are horrified by the things that I say, understand, I want you to be successful too. I want you to be happy. And so these are things that are going to help your long-term happiness. You have to understand you can't have both. We live in a very entitled society. Society is telling women that they can have everything and there's no consequences to behavior. I mean, that's just what's being socially conditioned now. That's just not true. That's just not true. There are consequences to everything you do. That fling you had when you were 19 years old on vacation, that one night stand has a consequence for you later, whether you like it or not. Now, maybe that consequence is not very big. Maybe it's huge. I don't know. Depends on the experience. Depends on how impacting it was. Depends on who you are. Depends on your makeup. But you can't sit here and think that your behavior doesn't have consequences, right? And that's male or female, same thing, okay? We live in this society where people think that they can do whatever they want and that there isn't going to be a consequence to those things. That's just not how reality works. With that understanding, here's what you should do, okay, if you're a woman and you want an LTR eventually. Now, if you want to go in a casting couch, do some porn, have a bunch of flings until you die, live your best life, have some divorces, have some illegitimate kids, whatever, I don't care. You do you. You do what you want, okay? But if you want a successful long-term relationship with somebody that you're happy with, and not just happy with during the honeymoon phase, but happy with for years to come, decades to come, that sort of thing. This is what's going to set you up for success. It is very difficult to have healthy, happy, long-term relationships past a few years. Very difficult. Maybe 1 in 10 survive past the 8-year mark. Not saying don't go for it. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I believe it is worth it, but you have to understand that you have to do everything possible that you can to set yourself up for success. This includes with your current short-term behavior, as well as behavior prior to the relationship, as well as behavior in the relationship. You have to set up every avenue for success for yourself, because these things fail more than they succeed. Okay? And when I say only 1 in 10, I don't mean that as a divorce rate. I mean 6 in 10 is like a divorce rate. Breakup rates maybe a little bigger than that, but it's really the happiness rate, because there's people who stay married or stay in a long-term relationship that when given a questionnaire or studied, they're just not happy with that relationship. So the ones that report happiness and actually stick around in that relationship, the ones that we can consider pair bonded, happy long-term relationships past like 8 years, it's maybe 1 in 10 that report that. I think it was actually 13%, but we could say 1 in 10 for that. So, and then absolute bliss, like where they're just reporting absolute best thing ever, bliss, no problems at all. That's only like, I don't know what it was, like 2 or 3%, like a really small percentages. So again, not impossible to make a long-term relationship work, but if you're a man or woman listening to this, whatever your role is in that relationship based on your gender, you got to set yourself up for success, because these things fail. So if you want it, you have to do everything you can. This is going to help you. Okay. So first of all, if you forget everything else they say in this list, seek out meaningful sexual experiences in the context of relationships. So instead of short-term flings, seek out long-term situations. Long-term situations that you hope will continue long-term. You're going to go through a number of guys and a number of notches, we'll say, regardless of what you do. I don't expect that you're going to be celibate until married. That doesn't even succeed necessarily either. So virgin brides and all that stuff isn't a reality anymore. I don't consider it a reality. And there's very few individuals or circles that do that. And the ones that do, I don't have a lot of proof that those are actually happier situations, to be honest. I mean, I have proof that they don't break up. With 0 to 1 previous sexual partner prior to a marriage that has the lowest divorce rate. But what about the happiness rate? That part I'm not 100% sure on. I mean, maybe it's high, I don't know, but it's hard to say, because a lot of those situations break up too. And I've looked at a lot of those situations are very unhappy. So that's not necessarily be a virgin until you marry. Not necessarily the recipe for success. It would be great if that worked that way in our society today. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Hit me up in the comments, but that just doesn't seem to be the way it works. So you're going to go through notches, but women, you have to understand that each experience you have imprints you for your future partner, imprints you for the rest of your life, in fact. And I say imprinting, I'm not going to get into the biological DNA parts of it. That's a bit controversial, but let's talk about more. It's more the psychological aspect of it. But those experiences imprint you psychologically, for better or for worse. And then you carry all that baggage into future relationships. So by the time you meet your, we'll say, forever guy or rest of your life guy, if that's what you want him to be, every situation you've been in prior to is a hindrance and takes away from that current long-term partner. That's just the reality of it. So you need to take those situations seriously. And every time you execute a short-term mating strategy, you're feeding your neurochemical responses for short-term variety sex rather than having a long-term pair bond. If you continue to feed your brain essentially and your pleasure centers and your reward centers for short-term promiscuous phase flings, you're not just going to turn around later and get the same chemical reward or get a better one necessarily in a long-term relationship. It just doesn't work that way. You might get a chemical reward in the beginning because of the honeymoon phase, but when you are not getting that variety 6 months, a year, 2 years later, women find themselves that bored with their partners. They find their relationships dull. And some of this is the way that the guys are acting. I understand that. But a lot of this is because neurochemically, you're not able to bond with that person in the same way if you're collecting a bunch of short-term experiences. So in other words, you get what you feed, and you have a genetic predisposition to polyamory and short-term experiences. So if you feed that, that is going to override your neurochemical system for the propensity of being happy with a partner long-term. So you need to take that seriously and only allow your sexual experiences to grow and happen and to explore and all that good stuff in meaningful relationships, in meaningful pair-bonded situations, not just meaningless flings. So if you follow that advice, that's going to set you up for success, more so better than anything else I'm about to say. But we'll keep going. This means also don't keep banging guys that you know are not long-term relationship material. A lot of you girls do that. You find a guy to bang, it fizzles out. You know he's not a long-term partner. You know he doesn't have that potential. You knew that from the beginning, or you found that out several encounters or weeks or months in. And then you continue to have sex with them because you like sex. Well, cool, I like sex too, but guess what? If I continue to have sex with, let's say, toxic, terrible women, well, that's not going to set me up for success for having a healthy relationship with somebody. In fact, that really hinders me as a man. That's a whole nother topic. So for you as a woman, having sex with guys that you know are not long-term material, that is not helping you be successful with your long-term relationships later. What that's doing is it's hindering you, right? So don't keep banging guys where there's no potential. A lot of you guys do that. Stop it. Don't bang guys just for familiar sex. This is exes, okay? Especially. A lot of you guys go back and bang your exes because you don't want to increase your notch count. It's funny, women that disagree with me or want to argue with me on the promiscuity thing will often justify going back to exes because they don't want to increase their notches. Sometimes the duplicity is just amazing when it's right in front of your face. But either way, there's nothing more disgusting to a future partner than a woman who goes back and bangs exes. Nothing more disgusting than that, really. But very few things. Because what it does is it illustrates the sexual credit you're giving to that previous partner. Everything you do, really, guys have to call the question your ability to bond to them if they're thinking about giving their commitment away. If you kept going back to a particular ex to bang that guy, you're not really going to be very convincing to your long-term partner that you're wanting to be long-term with, that there was nothing there, that that's not as good as it is with you, that I really, was being stupid and I didn't like him that much, or, well, we're just friends and we keep in touch, but there's no sexual attraction there. Yeah, really hard to justify all your BS when you've gone back to the guy even once after the breakup, or continue to have sex with them, we'll say, after the breakup. Now, I understand sometimes breakups are messy and they're not very clear. Sometimes it's like, it's not officially, like it's kind of like you're still figuring it out and it's not a clean breakup. Breakups are often not clean, and I understand that. But once it becomes clear that there is no relationship and you continue to bang that person, it is absolutely disgusting to future men who might want to be with you. The guys will tell you in the comments if you don't believe it, okay? Not just like incel guys or something, but guys who are sexually marketable guys will tell you that that's freaking disgusting. And it calls the question whether that guy should ever give a commitment away to you. Because instantly it indicates that guy was we'll say, a prominent sexual partner in your life. If you kept going back for sex when you knew there was no relationship there or potential for that, then that indicates he was something that you wanted to get sex from. So that may call to question your ability to be happy with that current partner, right? It might do that. So that's something that you don't want to do. Because understand, every thing you do is a consequence on your guy that you're supposed to be in love with. Your guy that's supposed to be in love with has to put up with all your bull stuff, all your past crap and all the baggage and consequences from that. And for a lot of guys, they're not, and I recommend high value guys, especially guys who are high value that have options with women, they don't want to put up with that. If a guy's looking at you and you have some ex that you went back to 3 times and that's still in your life and you're friends now or whatever, and then he's looking at another woman he's dating who doesn't have that, and you guys both are relatively equal, who do you think he's going to pick? He ain't going to pick you, and that's rightfully so. So back to the next one, one night stands, hookups, again, don't do them, short-term stuff, right? Don't do vacation sex. You know, you go to Mexico and you want to have the full Mexican experience, and that means Alejandro for a one-nighter. Yeah, that's not promoting long-term pair bonding, right? All that stuff is doing is ruining your ability to have that. Don't bang multiple guys in the same period. So that means some women will do Bill on Tuesday, Chris on Thursday, and then their ex Steve, they bang him like a couple times a month because Steve is really the best at sex and they really like having sex with Steve, but they know that's not going anywhere with Steve. Bill's a really nice guy and they really think it could work with Bill, but they're just not sure. And then Chris is just sort of a fun guy and they're not really willing to let Chris go. You get what I'm saying? And so in the same period, having sex with multiple men, you're practicing a polygamous strategy. You're not going to easily turn around and be with one guy now and be happy later. All right. Let's see what else. Don't monkey branch or mate switch. So when you're pair bonding with if you're pursuing meaningful relationships, whether it's casual or more than that with somebody, and the relationship is having trouble or fizzling out, if your answer is to line up the next guy, which I understand is an evolved strategy, but if that is what you're going to do, rather than work on your current relationship, that means that you're not developing coping skills that will help you in that relationship or in future relationships. What you're doing is practicing mate switching. So that tendency is going to be there. What happens when you meet that guy you really want to have kids with? Oh, and things get tough. Are you going to line up the next guy? Is that going to help you? No. What that's going to end up doing is, of course, hindering the relationship. Not to mention, you've been practicing mate switching, so you're not practicing handling the current situation. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, at a neurochemical level, you're blunting yourself because you're just replacing the emotions and feelings you get from one guy and lining it up and getting it from another guy. It's not quite a cheat, but you're lining this guy up and then that breakup happens and boom, a week later or days later or whatever, or a couple weeks later, you're banging the new guy that you lined up. Well, all you're doing is just replacing guys to fulfill emotional gaps, which are based in neurochemicals. By practicing doing that, you're practicing monkey branching, mate switching, and polyamory. You're not really practicing pair bonding. So what you want to do is you want to handle the current situation you're in, clean break, and take a break, allow yourself to heal from that, and then allow yourself to be opened up to have meaningful experiences with a new guy, right? That takes a little bit of time. There should be a gap there. Lining up the new guy and having the guy in backup, having guys in the backup position for if your current relationship or situation ends, that's not conducive of helping you be happy long term later on or wherever. Which then it brings to the next point is to take a break. If you go through a breakup, people are going to tell you, women are going to tell you that the quickest way to get over a guy is to get underneath another one. Right? That's what they're going to tell you. That would make you feel better in the short term, for sure. Getting new D, okay, is going to help you short term kind of feel better and get rid of those pair bonded feelings. But here's the problem. You're not practicing handling that oxytocin rush you had for that other person, that bond. So you're not practicing having that bond for people. You're practicing breaking the bond, if that makes any sense. So what you're doing is you're hindering your ability to just have that chemical reaction. When you're hurt and you're not feeling good, you just broke up with somebody, take a break, grieve the relationship, get over it. Let your neurochemicals repair themselves, so to speak. Let that addiction, because oxytocin is those neurochemicals, oxytocin particularly, is an addicting chemical. That's what causes you to want to be with somebody. Allow that to go away naturally and learn about yourself, spend some time by yourself, that sort of thing for a few months. Don't just jump on the next dude right away. That right there is going to help you not only get over breakups in a healthy way, so you're not carrying baggage around, but that's going to help you with that oxytocin reaction that you would get with somebody that you really are excited about next time. So the next guy who's hopefully better than the previous guy you broke up with and better for you, you want to have the capabilities of having all the good feelings for that guy. Well, if you're practicing just, jumping on the next dude right away after a breakup, well, that's not practicing handling those feelings, right? If that makes sense. And then that brings us to date multiple men. Do not stick with one guy that's kind of a loser, whatever. And I know most of you women do this anyways, but here's the thing. You don't have to sleep with all of them, right? Have good interactions with dudes. Go out with people, learn about them, have fun, see what they're like, but be selective with who you're sleeping with. That's it. When you sleep with somebody, make sure they got that you believe they have that potential for not just short-term, I'm attracted to this guy and he makes me get the tingles, but potentially for long-term success too. And so if you're doing that, it's going to help you. That concludes part 1 of this 2-part series. I will add or reiterate, if you've already gone through a ton of notches as a woman, it isn't all lost. Hope isn't lost. Okay, start doing the behaviors I mentioned now. You may need to do more work. I do mindset coaching. I do hypnotherapy. I do trauma therapy. Maybe you don't want to talk to me and you want to talk to somebody else. That's okay, all right? But there's possibilities of repairing these neurochemical systems. There are. It's controversial. We still need a lot of research, but I will say this, and this goes to you guys too. There are a fair amount of women out there who have gone through promiscuous phases and end up moving on and having happy and productive relationships. It does exist. I have seen it. I've experienced it. I know women who are good potential partners for long-term relationships who seem to have retained the ability to pair bond, who have quite an extensive sexual past. I know them. So don't tell me in the comments that it's not true, can never happen, blah, blah. I know it's true. But here's the problem, is that it's a game of Russian roulette, essentially, when a girl is making these decisions. In other words, we don't know if this particular girl who is going through her promiscuity phase is going to be able to pair bond in a healthy way or not when she comes out of it. We don't know what kind of work she's going to have to do to overcome whatever barriers she's put in place for herself due to her past experiences and behaviors. That's where the data is lacking, because we can do statistical samples and see the effects on pair bonding on a neurochemical sense, as well as just in relationship results when we look at large test samples. It's much easier to predict behavior when we look at a large test sample. It's much more difficult to predict behavior when we look at individuals, because individuals are much more nuanced, right? Is this particular individual woman going to be somebody who is going to be capable, or is she not going to be capable? And this is why, again, focusing on present behavior is really more important than focusing on the past. The past is important too, to understand it if you're the person who experienced it, to get an understanding and get those sort of those data points, and just to help you with your vetting process if you're a potential partner. So I'm not going to say past isn't important, obviously, but your present behavior, how you're showing up now, is what is more important. And how you can become better now is what is more important. So there's going to be a lot of guys in the comments who are going to be a bit more nihilistic. If she had sex with over 10 people, she's worthless, that kind of stuff. Listen, I'm not one who agrees with that. Maybe one girl has sex with 5 people and she's totally worthless because of a number of reasons. And maybe another girl has sex with 35 people and she's a great potential partner because of how it just affected her and also the work she has done after that stuff. Who knows, right? I don't say who knows, but I mean, it's a lot more research needs to be done. So don't look at this stuff with all or nothing thinking. Okay, that's not the point. That's all or nothing thinking plagues our society and it makes people dumb. So don't be dumb, all right? Just take the information for what it is and apply it. This is actionable stuff that can help you. Guys listening, look at that behavior, and if she's demonstrating that stuff, that's good. Like if she's taking a break from relationships after she's taking a break from guys in general and working on herself after a serious relationship breaks up. That's a great sign. Good sign of someone who's capable of pair bonding, for example. And so you can use this information to help vet out potential partners. If you're a woman listening, you can use this information to start doing better behavior that will set you up for success by feeding that drive to be satisfied in a pair bonded relationship versus seeking satisfaction through variety of multiple sexual partners and experiences. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Thanks again for listening, tuning in. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I will get to them if I can. And stay tuned for part 2, where we're going to talk about dudes. Okay, so what can dudes do to handle the global sexual marketplace and female promiscuity, and how can you navigate this if you're looking to find that long-term partner? Thanks again.